All right, welcome back to Noob School. John Sterling here. Hey, Noob School is where we're bringing on super successful, hyper successful salespeople and now business people that are willing to share kind of how they got started. What was it like for them when they started in sales? Most of them have also hired a bunch of salespeople and trained them. So trying to get that knowledge out of them for you. And today, I know I say this a lot, but I really mean it this time. Ted Hasshold, one of my all-time favorites. I'm sure Ted is a great guy because I've been watching him closely for almost 50 years.
Correct.
That's crazy, isn't it?
Yeah, since I was 10.
Yeah, 10 years old. So, gosh, you're old. Anyway, we're
62.
Yeah, we're delighted Ted's here, and just a couple of quick things about Ted that I can tell you before we get started. So, in high school, I was in high school with Ted. He was, life of the party. Probably someone you would say would be good at sales. Also a great soccer player. And Ted went on to South Carolina. He was a Gamecock, and he went to work for Telman as the first company. So Telman was a reseller of AT&T.
Right. It was right when divestiture of AT&T in 1984.
So they were forced to break up AT&T.
Correct.
And you guys started.
It's like cryptocurrency now.
Yes, it was the crypto.
It was like, what are they doing? They're selling long distance.
Yeah, and looking backwards, it was like a sure thing, right?
Yeah, right.
But it wasn't at the moment, was it?
It was not at all.
Yeah.
It was like, what are y'all doing?
So Ted, believe it or not, we'll get into the story, but Ted started with this company, Telman, which then got merged into another company and then bought by another company. Then he's gone through 7 or 8 different, transmogrifications of companies, but it all is the same company.
Right.
And you'll see over this series of the next 7 or 8 podcasts, there's going to be a lot of people from that CTG Telman background, but none more important than Ted.
There we go.
Welcome aboard, Ted.
It's great to be with you, John. It's awesome.
Yeah,
awesome.
Man.
Just love what your book, just what it represents and what you're trying to achieve.
You did read the book.
Absolutely, man.
You weren't a big reader in high school.
No, it was not.
I wasn't either.
It was, but it was fun. It was a trip down memory lane.
Yeah.
And I love how you talk about what not to do.
Yeah.
As much as what you've learned.
Yeah.
But some of the mistakes can be avoided. And
I agree.
I'm a reflection of some of those early mistakes, and that's why I love reading it. So that's awesome.
Well, thank you, Ted. Me too. I mean, that's kind of why I wrote it. Is just because somebody like me or you ends up, doing pretty well in the business game, boy, it could have been easier.
Yeah.
It could have been so much easier. So this hopefully will help them, as will your stuff. So why don't we start with the traditional first question of, you went to South Carolina. How did you end up getting into sales, and why did you pick Telman as the first company?
Yeah, I had no idea what I was really going to do when it came to it. I ended up talking to a gentleman who I respected, and he was going on to law school, and we were just having a beer, and he goes, "Hasshold, you would be awesome in sales," because I was talking about law school, and I know you kind of walked around that same same path, but that wasn't going to be for me. And he says, "Man, you have so many friends, and you know everybody, and you're easy to talk to, and you've got." You get up and go and get after it. So you'd be great in sales. And that was really the first time somebody ever really said of a career. The first time I got taken back and went, John, you're right. I mean, this is John Scarborough.
Yeah.
But I said, I hadn't thought about that. Thank you.
Yeah.
So that's what kind of put the seed in my head. And then later that year, graduating. There was a young company. My next door neighbor happened to be with BMA, Builder Marts of America, and they had just started this Telman. And that's who I knew. And so I went and interviewed.
And so who was that, the neighbor?
It's a Bud Stoner.
Stoner, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Was that on Fairview?
We were living on Hathaway Circle at the time, out in Green Valley. So he was a neighbor out there in Green Valley.
Okay. Cool. Well, it is amazing. And again, part of the reason for the podcast and the book is that worked out for you. But what if you weren't living over there at Hathaway? I mean, And I've seen more young people, very qualified, hardworking, squared away young people, and they're like, my next door neighbor, worked at the textile mill, and so I ended up getting a job at the textile place, and it hadn't been so good. Right. It wasn't quite the hot industry you got into or I got into. I just think the more they can do at the beginning, and again, I wasn't a good homework person to begin with, so I'm adding homework to these poor people, but what can they do to do more homework on what is available? What are they good at? What do they like? And try to figure that out.
Well, early on, I showed you these strengths and weaknesses, and maybe we'll talk a little bit more about that. But, I think you've got to look at a couple things. When I just recently made a career change, and I looked at what kind of culture of a company did I want to get into? Yeah. Was the timing right? For that industry where we are right now? Yeah. Did that company have a great net promoter score? Right. Because maybe my last experience they weren't good at service delivery and customer service, so I didn't want to go through that again. Yeah. And then is the leadership, that goes around culture, but that's who you want to hang around. You want to hang around winners. And I was thinking about coming in this morning. What's better, to not have the Super Bowl ring or to have the Super Bowl ring and maybe play on the winner? Maybe you didn't play first string. And I would say playing on a first string team is going to get you a lot further in life. Yeah. And so picking that right company that matches up to your strengths and get after it. Right. Don't be afraid of making an error. Go for it. Yeah. You'll learn something along the way. You'll learn either what not to do or maybe you'll get a mentor that can mentor you for life. And that's basically what I got in many ways.
Well, I think that's great. So Ted wasn't sure what he wanted to do. When he kind of explored the sales thing, he's like, that's what I should do. I don't want to go be a lawyer. Right. And then you found a very good company with this neighbor of yours who you trusted, and you got into what turns out to be a wonderful opportunity. So that's kind of how you did it to get in the first place.
Exactly.
Okay.
And one of the first people I met after I got into Tellman was David Hudson. He goes, "What are you doing here, Hasshold?" I said, "What are you doing here?"
Well, he'll be on the pod before long. Don't you worry. Don't you worry. And so let's walk through for the noobs kind of what it was like when you started, what kind of work you had to do, and maybe even that 3-month review you were talking about, or 4-month review when you almost had to get a new career.
Correct. Correct.
And then how your role changed over the years, because I think one of the one of the head trashes people have about sales is, I don't want to just be a salesperson my whole life. Right. And you've been manager, vice president, president, you've been all these different things, but I bet you've always been a salesperson.
Yes.
So walk us through that.
Well, I mean, my role was in telecom sales. We were selling long distance services, and I had to go out and cold call, get in your car, go knock on some doors, see if I could find out who the decision maker was to change from AT&T to our services, and present some evidence as to why they should do that and close. And so we had this need satisfaction process to which we were taught, which has lasted forever for me. And it was great. It was fantastic. What I lacked was the daily discipline. And when I didn't have the greatest first manager per se that was coaching towards the daily discipline. And once I got the daily discipline, that's where things really, really happened for me. Okay. I showed up. I thought you could read the paper, like my boss was doing, and then go out and make a couple calls before lunch, and then have a lunch, and then a couple calls after lunch, and then that was your day. Yeah. That's not the day. Yeah. Your day starts early and prepping,
Yeah.
and making sure you know who your accounts are. You create a list, a hit list of who you want to have as your customer, what you think may fit, and then you charge after them. And you may be making 20 cold calls, not 4,
That's
to
a
get
big
that
difference.
done.
4 to 20.
Yeah, but you had to have somebody in your life to point that out. And so when I was my first 2 months, I had a whopping 2 sales, and my leader, Leighton Cubbage, came down and said, "Hey, you're getting ready to get fired. We all like you and everything, but this is not working out. This is not college anymore. It's not your girlfriend. I like your chapter in the book about the timing on things to happen in your life, And so he goes, you got to get together, and here's what you have to do. Here's your strengths. Here's your weaknesses. The weaknesses are great. They're still my same weaknesses that they are today from 1984. Yeah. But it gave me a path to work on something, read more, learn more about closing, learn more about sales, et cetera. And so it changed my life. It set me up on goal setting and the wagon wheel of goals around financial, spiritual, business, personal,
athletic,
being in shape, physical shape. Yeah. And that's stayed with me my whole life. Now, I'd say on to your latter question about the roles that played in my success, I love sales. It's sort of what I naturally do. But one part of my career was going into operations. And I thought sometimes that looks like, hey, he went backwards. And financially, maybe it was a backwards move. But it positioned me better than anybody else out there who had not had operations background. So I spent 4 years in operations, service delivery and customer service, and I did great things. We developed account management strategies. We created a churn predictor tool. It really changed the way we did business and thought about business and account management existing customers. But I was the only, we talked about the disc models and some of these other models. I was the only eye in the room full of C's. But I used that, and it became, hey, he had wild success there as well as his sales. And so when the opportunity came up to become a president of a region, I had this knowledge. I had the internal, I knew what the down the line sales meant after the process. And it elevated me in the company, and it served me extremely well. Yeah,
great point. So the point is, if you're kicking butt in sales and rolling along, and you get a chance to go sideways and do something a little bit different, it might be what elevates you over the other sales.
Yeah, I mean, you talk about the long-term view. You talk about your 20s, your 30s, your 40s, your 50s, and I would argue that anybody who you talk about them starting off in sales, maybe that's not where they end up, right? But if you do start in sales, you will learn the company. You'll learn the ins and outs. You'll have to deal with customers. You have to deal with people. The operations experience was interdepartmental. So I created a wealth of influence in the entire company, not only on the sales, because they all knew me, but so did the operations people. When if something had to get done, I was that bridge between operations and sales to get that done. But that serves you well. I think if you want to become a CEO, sales gives you that experience to touch on all those different divisions within the company to be able to do that.
Yeah, I agree. There's a lot of CEOs that were salespeople. That's for sure.
A lot of
them. That's a good point. Let's talk about the Colby for a minute.
Sure.
Everyone here knows about the Colby test, Colby.com. You can go take it, and it'll show you your natural strengths.
Right.
And I'm sure there's other ones out there, but that's just the one I've always used, going back from Bill Lee days.
Right.
Got me
using
it. But Ted took it, and it was 6.3, something, 6.354 maybe.
Right.
Yeah. Right. 6.354. So the 3 on the follow through is an interesting number. It's the same number I have.
Right.
And it just means that we are naturally not gifted at like doing the homework,
right.
Doing the tasks, getting
right.
the proposal finished, getting the paperwork done. I mean, I'm telling you, I told you earlier, Ted, I mean, I used to like get everyone, get all these people that are interested in like, okay, I need to do this proposal later. Then I get another one. There's another one I got to do. And it was really bad. It was so bad that my partner, instead of firing me, he hired an assistant.
Exactly.
He did.
Exactly.
And he fooled me.
Yeah.
He was like, I think we need her to help organize the office. But she's going to help you too, John.
Yeah.
She's going to help you too. Yeah. So I think he knew I could sell,
right.
and that I needed help.
Yeah. And who doesn't, man? I mean, I think salespeople are naturally gifted at getting stuff off the ground.
Right.
That 80% of the energy and the fuel to get a rocket off.
Yeah.
But that last 20%, you can't get the rocket. Still won't launch, right? And get to its destination without the other 20%.
So to me, the beauty of the Colby is I used to beat myself up about it.
Right.
Instead of doing that, I recognize that's just the way it is.
It is.
And I'm just going to need help.
Right.
Period.
Right.
Let's get it done some other way.
Right. And that's one of those weaknesses that you work on either, but you get more help. You get people who are great at it. Yeah. Hey, I can get this going, but I need to delegate this. And I think one of those great skill sets that you can learn over time is when you have an opportunity to delegate. A lot of people want to do it all. Yeah. But having the skill set to be able to say, hey, I'm not the greatest at this. Yeah. And here's your opportunity to prove yourself, young man, young lady. Yeah. I need this to be delivered by X time frame. Yeah. And delegate it. Yeah. And then you can now you're starting to see some of the strengths of your team and maybe where they may fit down the line for future opportunities. So that skill set of being able to see what your weaknesses is and maybe delegate it to somebody, a younger person, as you get some experience in management role. It's a great opportunity to help.
I agree. The Colby's there's like 10 pages worth of advice on the Colby results. So I suggest everyone gets it.
It was fun to take. I'm
glad you took it.
It was different for me.
Thank you for the leap of faith there. Tell us about some of the good decisions that you made along the way so far, just the good ones in terms of making you more successful in the world of business and sales.
Right. Well, I mean, I think it all starts with mentors. Mm-hmm. I mean, for me, I had the blessings of having two great people, Leighton Cubbage and Charlie Hauser, in my life that cared about me. Yeah. And they did those strengths and weaknesses. Yeah. They kept me accountable to those goals. Mm-hmm. They may have even provided me with other outside of work influences that had a positive impact on my life, either physical or spiritual, and been helpful in wanting for me to do that, right? But having a leap of faith sometimes is a difficult thing to do. You mentioned your book, traveling early in someone's career. I thought that was awesome. I mean, I was young. I opened up a market every 6 months throughout the Southeast. Got on airplanes, was in charge of the Northeast and Midwest. And then at one point in my career was asked to go, leave the familiar and let's go live out West in Denver for 10 years and be a president of a region and be a leader and be the only person that in that space. And sometimes you just got to say, let's go for it. What's the worst thing that can happen? Right. Yeah, I may make a little bit more money, but if it's not about the money, what will I learn? Who will I meet that could impact my life in a positive way? Yeah. And I think that speaks well. I think early in your career, it's a great opportunity to do that. But I think late in your career, take a chance. Let's see what may happen and see how it shapes your life. Yeah. And it was a positive experience for me.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, that's most of those stories where people are like, I had a chance to do something that I wasn't sure. When they took the chance, it usually worked out one way or another.
Always. Yeah. It shapes you. It shapes your life, and it shapes. Again, I think networking is such a key component about success. Yeah. And people always say, hey, always be closing or whatever it is. I think always be networking. I think connecting the dots, especially later in life, to help people. Yeah. You can only do that if you continue to network and get to know somebody new. Yeah. And in Denver, for example, when COVID hit, I was having a coffee every week with somebody, somebody I never knew. Or after that coffee, I'd ask him, who else should I meet? Because I don't know people in the landscape of Denver. He goes, Ted, you love talking to so forth and so on. And I'd go get a coffee. Wow. Well, in COVID hit, I kept those coffees going virtually. And it was great. Yeah. It was just amazing what network I started to develop out there that I continue to have. Yeah. But networking, I think, connecting the dots, helping people, bring them up, and knowing what their skill sets are to position them, to put them in front of a John Sterling for a hire. Yeah. That's awesome.
That's great. That's a good point. Networking, huge. And I would say networking on a schedule, like you said, once a week versus just networking. I think having a process in place, one a week, 2 a week, 1 a month, but something other than just networking. So right. Now, I know we don't want to go negative, but are there any things that you did that they shouldn't do? Like any mistakes early on that kind of...
Yeah, when I was reading your book, and I just make large notes on a page, and something I've learned again for the first time here recently. It's not about you. It's just not. Yeah, right. Any conversation is not about you. It's how can you bring value to the person you're meeting with. Yeah. In business, in life, or whatever it may be, it's not, because when I went through a career change, not too long ago, and was doing networking, finding out what's my next season of life look like. Well, they didn't know the Tellman story, the CTG story, all that, and Nuvox and all that stuff. They didn't care about that. Yeah, they cared about, can this person in front of me help me get my company where it's going? Yeah. And so I think if noobs knew what their strengths are and listened a lot more to what that person's needs are, which is all what selling's all about, is just, can I help them with this problem, right? Can we find a solution? But can we figure out a way where this person adds value to my organization, and where does he fit, or where does she fit? And if you know what your strengths are and you're listening to the person say, here's where the gaps are in my business, here's where I'm having a difficult time. And then finally you can say, I've got a good skill set with that. Here's an example of how I helped in that organization to get them from A to B.
Then you can say something.
I've got an opportunity. I think I can help you. Yeah.
You use a third-party example. Well, I saw this here. This is the same thing. Maybe it could help you.
Exactly. I mean, my current role I'm in, I took a coffee. Scott Millwood called me up and said, hey, can you take a coffee with this guy? I met him playing golf. Yeah. Well, he got halfway through. I knew the playbook. I said, I'm not giving you any more names. I think I'm your guy. And here's the reasons why. And so that's why I'm happily in the position and role I'm in.
I didn't know that.
So it's awesome.
Well, I'll give you an example, Ted, of what Ted just said. Basically, don't talk about yourself. If you're in a sales game, don't talk about yourself. And if you have some grand accomplishments in your past, like I do, and like Ted does, these wonderful things, state champion, 1978. I mean, he's got some great, but as soon as you say them, just next time you say it, look at the person you're talking to, and they'll be going, rolling back in their head. You can say anything. Say, I won the Super Bowl, just 2 years ago. And I tell you, when I hear it, is occasionally I'll watch like NFL football. Not that much, but occasionally. And about once or twice per game, the announcer, the color guy, he'll be giving the so-and-so, he's dropping back for a pass, whatever, 3rd and 2. And the guy will say, that reminds me, back in 1984, when I was playing for San Francisco. I mean, and to him, that's really important. But everyone who's listening is like, shut your pie hole. Right. We don't care.
Right. I think we live in a world where, can I cap you? Yeah. You're not listening to the individual sometimes when you're talking, just have a casual conversation, because you're waiting to jump on them and say, I can beat that story.
Right.
Wait till top. And you've already stopped listening because you're ready to engage But I think some of the secret sauce to sales is to throttle back and listen. And I think listening was part of the things I had to learn to do early on. Is you came in with a game plan. You told them what the game plan was going to be. Yeah. You knew there was a period of time where you were just going to be asking questions and listening and taking notes and asking the question, not answering the question right then, just taking the notes, going to the next question, because you only had a certain period of time. And that time management was a big component of me learning about success. You only had 1 hour. Mm-hmm. We can go in there and we talk about football all day long and you got 5 minutes left in the appointment. What happened? Nothing. You have to manage your time through the process and make sure you get through all your points, listen to what the customer's saying, recap, see if you have a solution, and move forward.
Well, do you have any examples of head trash, things that you at one time believed, but you it's a certain point realized was completely false?
Yeah, right. Well, I mean, I think early on, again, pointing towards early in your career, you coming out of college, you've got a great GPA like I've got. I'm full of confidence, you know. But you're out of school, right? And you're ready to get your new job. And sometimes you just don't know if you were worthy enough. You know, here you are sitting in front of a person who may have been in a role for a long period of time. You are not a subject matter expert at that time. And now you're put in a position to say, hey, you need to have our services or, you know, how can we fit, you know, your needs? And you're not sure whether you have the right solution or the right product or what the competitors look like. So you don't know where you stack up. So your confidence is a little shaky coming in. You get more confidence, you know, if the more you're out there, sometimes you just need one win, right? I mean, the value of having some success leads to success. But I think that shakiness and uneasiness and confidence in oneself early in the process, you have to earn that over time. But the faster you can do that, the faster you can have some success in whatever you do. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense. Makes perfect sense. I have one last question. What's your favorite word?
Super duper.
Super duper. That's what I thought. Super duper. Well, Ted,
super duper and Joy. Those are my two
you're
favorites.
Super duper. So thank you for being on today. I and the noobs, we both appreciate it.
Well, I hope I've helped, and it's always a pleasure, John.
Thank you, buddy.
Awesome.
Take care.
Thank you.
All right. Hey, it's John here. Thanks for listening today. Please check out noobschool.org. That's my website. That's where we have other videos and content that can help you get started in sales.